Okay, teachers, hello. Welcome back to another segment of Mastering Classroom Management by Design for the Primary Teacher. I am Lauren Zbiegien. I'm the founder of LessonPlanToolbox.com, where we help primary teachers master classroom management day in and day out. They tell us their problems, whether it's student behavior, systems, routines, coming up with strategies. We give them their own unique I shouldn't say one size fits all, because that's not at all what classroom management is. This is exactly why I created Lesson Plan Toolbox, because it is not a one size fits all system. But we give you your own unique strategies. You simply fill out a form. We email you either the resource that you need, the strategy that you need. A video like this just for you can pop right into your inbox right through our membership. So that is who we are. That's what we're here for. Welcome back to our segment. Again this week, I want you to know that this is your safe place to just breathe, to reset, and just hopefully walk away with tools that will actually work. I am going to give you some tips and strategies about something that so many of us are seeing more and more of in our classrooms. And this topic is, how do we support neurodivergent learners without getting overwhelmed ourselves? This is a huge piece of the puzzle. So before we dive into these strategies, and yes, I have plenty for you, we need to zoom out. Because if you're anything like me, you have probably wondered, why does this student need constant reminders? Why are they always up and moving? Why can't they just follow the routine like everyone else? And you're not alone in thinking these questions. The truth is, it's not just about what to do, it's about understanding why these behaviors happen in the first place. And once we understand that, everything starts to click. So let's just dive in and get started, okay? The first thing we want to talk about is the behavior is not the problem. Let's start with a mindset shift that changed my entire approach to teaching. And this is the fact that the behavior is not the problem. The behavior is the clue. Neurodivergent students, those with ADHD, autism, sensory processing differences, anxiety, and so many more, they often experience and respond to the classroom differently. Not because they're trying to be disruptive or disrespectful, but because their brains are literally wired in unique ways. So if a student is constantly interrupting, that's not about attention seeking, it's about attention needing. If a child melts down during transitions, that's not about manipulation, it's dysregulation in the fear of the unknown. If a student refuses to start their work, they may not be defiant. It might very well be that they're overwhelmed and they don't know how to begin. So think about it this way. These behaviors are how their brains are trying to cope in a world that's not always designed for them. Our job as educators is to help them embrace this world. Our job is to decode what their behavior is trying to tell us. So let's unpack the brain stuff quickly, just so we can teach smarter and not harder. So first, we have executive functioning differences, right? Neurodivergent kids often struggle with starting tasks. They often struggle with keeping track of steps if they have multi-step directions. They often struggle with switching between activities. Those transitions can be really tricky for these students. And again, this isn't laziness. It's like their internal manager, their executive functioning. It took a long lunch break. So what's going to help? Break the tasks into bite-sized steps, especially if you're giving them several tasks. Use checklists or visual cues for these students. And then offer clear transitions and countdowns. In 2 minutes, we're going to be packing up. Come to a stopping point. We also want to look at sensory processing, right? So imagine trying to focus while wearing like an itchy sweater next to a blaring speaker under a strobe light. That's how some kids experience the classroom on a daily basis. What's going to help these students? If you have flexible seating, use it. Headphones or a quiet corner, those are magical. Fidget tools, even those controversial ones, when introduced and structured well, will work for you too. If you haven't introduced them properly, don't use those. The next component we want to look at is emotional regulation. So neurodivergent kids, they often feel emotions bigger and faster. The classroom feels unsafe, not because of physical danger, but because of the emotional overwhelm. And their nervous system reacts the same way. What do? We need to co-regulate by staying calm ourselves. We need to continuously teach calming strategies proactively. Then we want to create a safe space that's not a punishment zone, but a reset button zone. Okay? So let's talk about when you feel like you're drowning and it's like, how do I help these kids without losing my mind myself? And this is the heart of it. Because you matter too. You can't pour from an empty cup, and you know that. And you shouldn't have to sacrifice your sanity to support your students. So let's talk about low lift, high impact strategies that support everyone in your class, not just your neurodivergent students, but you as well. You want to first create those predictable routines and over teach them. Neurodivergent learners thrive with clear structure. But here's the catch. They need more repetition than you think. We often teach the routine once or twice or 3 times and we assume it's learned. But they need it retaught, modeled, and reinforced consistently throughout the year. The next thing we want to do is we want to practice transitions like a drill. Use those visual timers or anchor routines, right? Narrate steps aloud for the whole class, not just the one student. You're going to save yourself a whole lot of sanity if you're kind of doing this whole class rather than focusing on one student. The next thing we want to do is we want to reframe behavior, and this is huge. We want to reframe misbehavior as stress behavior. So ask yourself, is this student misbehaving or are they having a hard time? When we approach students with curiosity instead of control, we find real solutions. Instead of saying, he's always out of his seat, try, what's he getting from moving? Can I build that into his day proactively? Instead of, she won't start her work, ask yourself, is the task too open-ended? Is it too long? Is it too unfamiliar? This reframing brings us back to problem solving instead of punishment, and it allows everyone's stress, including ours, to go down. The third piece we want you to consider is to introduce tools, not toys. This is huge. So let's talk calm down corners and those fidgets for just a sec. I know you're seeing the same thing I'm seeing. You create a quiet space, and suddenly half the class wants a break. You introduce a fidget, and now it's a popularity contest. So here's the shift. We teach these tools with structure, not secrecy. Introduce the calm down area like a center. Model how to use it, when to use it, and how to return. Give every student a chance to practice, not just the ones who struggle, every single student. And have those limits set. You can take a 2-minute break, and I'll give you a thumbs up when it's time to return to your seat. I use the reset passes with timers so students can request a break responsibly, and that small piece of structure keeps the system from becoming chaos. Okay? The next thing we want to focus on is you don't have to be perfect, you just have to be present. And here's a reminder that we all need. You're not failing because you're tired. You're not falling behind because the strategies aren't sticking yet. You're a teacher in a classroom full of tiny humans, many of whom are still figuring out how to exist on their own and in their own brains. And you You're doing better than you think. The magic isn't having a color-coded binder of neurodivergent strategies. The magic is in noticing, listening, and tweaking as you move. Just like we scaffold for students, we can scaffold for ourselves too. You try one new strategy this week, one shift in language, one deeper why behind a behavior. You start there. That's the work. One simple step. But we want to keep this conversation going, right? So if this segment kind of resonated with you, find me on Instagram at Classroom Management for Primary and let me know what stuck with you the most. And if you're feeling alone in this work, know that you're not. We're figuring this out together in the messy middle, right? We could be one reset, one reframe, one relationship at a time. So thank you so much for being here, hearing these strategies. Be mindful of leading with love and curiosity. You've got this. You absolutely have got this. I can't tell you how important your job is, especially as you lay the foundation for learning. But I also can't tell you how important it is when we are working with children and we want to go right for punishment. We have to be open-minded and realize that the punishment is not going to shift the behavior. We have to, on a daily basis, give them the strategies to shift the behavior. How do we do that? The student behavior scenario of the day cards that you can get only inside our membership are an amazing place to start. And I'm going to tell you, using them personally in my classroom, I cannot tell you the drastic shifts in behavior from our big feeling students, how we have regulated them and how they are absolutely applying these strategies. Did it take time? Yes, it took time. This did not just happen in a week or 3 weeks. It is a daily conversation that we have. They have to be reminded every single day, here's how we can respond to behaviors appropriately. So, with that all being said, thank you again so much for being here. You are doing important work. You are probably a stronger teacher and making more of an impact than you will ever realize. And please, don't be humble. Embrace the goodness that you bring to the classroom. We don't give ourselves enough credit. Okay, until next week. Teach, relax, repeat.